All right, so this is Diesel with People News. Not attorney, not giving legal advice. Educational purposes only. Okay? Never do it. Just look straight forward. Always look around you. Be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. Okay? So again, this is Eddie Craig, and he's one of the best that I've seen of breaking down statutes. But how does he do it? Right? Because I told you that you got to look up the definition of words. And just because a word uh, is written in the statute, it does not mean what it means. You have to go to another category. Then you got to go to over here. And then you got to go over there. And it's designed on purpose to mislead you, to uh, trespass upon you, to domestic abuse against you, battery against you, when there's just certain things you don't need to do, but by you just reading the statute, you yourself has actually misimplied the statute, and you wonder why you lose in court. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper, and maybe this would be a little bit more clear for you than I can do.
For-profit corporation in its own self. So, that being said, we need to understand what an actual crime is versus what a bellum prohibitum alleged crime is. This is what brings us into the areas of transportation, which is one of my main areas of expertise. Now, when we get to transportation, we're going to get to some definitions when we go through this. And there's some things you need to understand about reading and understanding statutes when you begin to research this on your own. Terminology in relation to statutes is extremely important. Everything about statutory language is a gotcha clause. And 4.6 here, this gotcha of terminology, the compound definition, is one of the key ways of understanding how this system is set up to function. Semantic
compound definitions, right? And that's where lies the problem, where we all are being usurpation against, right? So these attorneys and these judges stay up all night figuring out how to violate your rights. You're misplaced that your representatives actually write the law. It's the attorneys that write the law. Okay? And they publish it, your representative, but that's not what we are paying them to do. We're paying the legislature to write the law, not the attorney. Because it should be, in most cases, that they don't have any real legal knowledge, so they're going to speak to man, right? Using man language, okay? Not just stated confusion of legalese. And most of you guys heard there's legalese, but there's English. Okay? So it's its own language. And how you got to use it is something like this.
In regards to transportation enforcement is extremely important. Everything is about the language. Everything is about the definitions in the language. So that being said, one of the first things you have to pay attention to is what I refer to as a compound definition. A compound definition can be hard to spot it when you don't know what you're looking for. But basically speaking, a compound definition is any definition that contains one or more terms or phrases that itself has its own separate definition elsewhere. Now, one of those primary examples when we move down to the next portion of this is you're going to see commercial motor vehicle. Notice that means a motor vehicle. Well, right here we have a problem. You have a definition.
Sorry, y'all. Let's back that up a little bit because we want to kind of really get this cleared.
You're going to see commercial motor vehicle. Notice that means a motor vehicle. Well, right here we have a problem.
Okay, so He has these things already darkened, right? Has its own definitions, right? It's a different definition. This don't mean what this means. And you got to kind of break it down. So this right here, motor vehicle, may have a different definition in the transportation code of doing something else, but not the same as the definition here. Okay? And this is what he's talking about. Again, y'all, I don't know how far I can stress. Attorneys and judges stay late up night to violate your rights due to they speak the language, and when we just read it ordinarily, then you think, oh, it applies. And this is where a lot of people are understanding of like the right to travel and all that and all these kind of things. It's because the words goes into so many different, for lack of a better term, different jurisdiction of definitions.
You have a definition that uses the same terms as a part of its definition. Right there, we have something that isn't defined. You're trying to use the term being defined as a part of the definition. Then you say, when you read this, means a motor vehicle other than a motorcycle designed or used primarily to transport property. Now, another way I used to talk about this in my seminar material, and this is an excerpt from the book that I have in that seminar material, is these are what I refer to as rabbit trails. In this, there are multiple rabbit trails that you need to look at. For instance, commercial is a rabbit trail. Motor vehicle is a rabbit trail. Vehicle is a rabbit trail. Transport is a rabbit trail. Property is a rabbit trail. Passenger and passenger car itself is a separate rabbit trail. This, folks, is why statutory law is so hard to understand. And one of the things you'll notice most is that when you see a word or phrase in a statute, the worst mistake you can make is to believe you understand that statute. When you recognize that word or phrase and assume that it means the same thing in the statute that it does in common English that you're familiar with, that will always be a mistake. And here's why. If they created a definition for it in the statute, then it is an absolute 100% guarantee that term or phrase is being used in a manner other than the normal. If it was not so, they would not have to create a separate definition for it within the statute, would they?
So, argument's sake, and this is going to be way out there, but it kind of brings the point across, right? So, they could say rabbit, but by the definition of rabbit, it's going to mean vehicle, right? These are the stupidest things that they do to violate our rights. They can come up with any type of definition and call it good when you go by every day by a totally different definition. Clearly, the one that I use the most, the person, right? Well, the person speaking man to man is not the same definition as it is in legalese. Okay? Individual, person, commerce, trust, business. All right? That's of one like kind. But they do that crap to trick you. And meanwhile, every time you're watching TV, oh, he's a good person. Every person is a good person. Oh, my wife is a good person. All right? You are set up for failure in court by that word, just all by itself. It causes you lots of problem in court.
Would simply say go see Webster's, or they would include the same definition that's in Webster's, but they don't do that. They create their own specialized definition for that. Now notice, when you look at light truck, it says means a commercial motor vehicle that has a manufacturer's rated carrying capacity of 1 ton or less. So right here, light truck contains a separate definition. So light truck right off the bat is a compound definition because it contains another defined term from.
Now, to be fair, today's volume in Texas, right? They took out commercial. But with all them other words in there, it's of that one like kind. It's still with the definition of vehicle, transportation, all that. So it's still in the four corners of the scope of commercial capacity, even though they took this out of statute, again, to mislead you, to trick you, to lie to you, to get you to comply and lose your rights. This is the stupidest crap they. All right, don't get me going. All right, so even with Texas, they took that out to trick us. But all these words, when you look up all these words, is still commercial.
Right up here. So when we go down a little bit further and we look at some more of these definitions, you can see here we have motor vehicle, which is a separate definition from commercial motor vehicle, which we just saw. When you look at this, we now have a new definition to look at, which is vehicle by itself. Notice, motor vehicle means a vehicle that is self-propelled. All right? Now, another key factor to this is going to be the term owner. When you go look in law and you read some of the things that we have here, owner means a person who, A, holds the legal title of a vehicle. So again, rabbit trails, legal title and vehicle. B, has the legal right of possession of a vehicle. There's 3, legal right, possession, and vehicle. And C, has the legal right of control of a vehicle. Again, 3, legal right, control, and vehicle. All of these are rabbit trails that you must find out how these terms are defined in this statute, if it is defined. Now, there is a hierarchy to determining what the definition of any term or phrase in law is. First and foremost, you use the legal dictionary. The legal dictionary, or the statute, you use the statute first. If the definition exists in statute, that definition is controlling. Now, after that, if the statute does not define any particular definition for a term or phrase, then you go to the legal dictionary and the case law. Most of the time, the definition you will find in a legal dictionary is based and set on case law. And in Black's, up until the 6th edition became the 7th, they always listed the case law with the definition that defined it and created that definition as it's being used. So it's very useful in that regard. However, that tends to show you where to go and research the terms, and from version 7 forward, they're not listing the case law in Black's Law anymore. Now they're just listing the definition and letting it go at that. They're not telling you how that definition came into existence. When we get to some of those definitions from Black's Law, I want to show you exactly how and why they started doing that. Now, after owner, you see passenger car. Again, means a motor vehicle. So a passenger car is a motor vehicle. Other than a motorcycle, a golf cart, or a light truck, which is a definition we also saw, or a bus, designed or used primarily for the transportation of persons. Now, transportation here is underlined because, once again, that is an...
Now, he don't point this out, but owner means a person who